B'Shem Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We are back here, Baruch Hashem, from Eretz HaKodesh, Yerushalayim HaKdosha. And we're back here to have another extraordinary Shiur, BeEzrat HaShem, Shiur Torah, Shiur Kedusha, a Shiur that's going to realign our ideologies and our minds in the right direction, and also address certain issues that are certainly running rampant and causing a lot of noise here in Israel, and I'm sure in other places around the world. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema, for Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rav Efraim Ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Avi Mori David Ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris Bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides, all the people that support our organization, whether it's in the past or the present, and certainly in the future. Zat Hashem. So tonight's shiur is going to start off by addressing a very big issue that apparently hit the wires today and caused a lot of noise, which is that a certain rabbi, I don't know his name, and apparently he's, we've never heard of him, but Rabbi Efraim has never heard of him, but apparently some people know him well, and he's well known within his community in Bnei Brak. And when he was asked what, how should they view the IDF soldiers, the Israeli soldiers that are now fighting the war in Israel against the terrorists of Hamas and their, Palestinian supporters and other enemies of Am Yisrael, how should these soldiers be respected? And his very off remark that shocked the Jewish world, that reached nearly 500,000 people just on Twitter. He was recorded saying, I'll ask you a question, and I'll say, how do you respect the garbage man? And he says, so the same way that you respect the garbage man, respect the IDF soldier. This off remark obviously was not taken well by the public, and reignited the hatred between the lefty, liberal, modern, Jewish people against the Orthodox Haredi people, in such a way that literally this little clip that whoever made that clip certainly is going to be punished for it, for the Chilul Hashem that it created, is reached, like I said, nearly 500,000 people just on one thread that I saw. It's a 30-second clip, it's in Hebrew, and it's certainly shocking to hear such statements, such words coming out of an Orthodox Jew, needless to say a rabbi. Now the question is this the truth? Are we to respect the IDF soldiers like garbage men, meaning disrespect them? At least that's what was understood, and that's what seems to be implied, because they are fighting for the Zionist government, or whatever other type of hatred people have for the political situation that's been here already for better of 70 years. Or are they to be excluded from that hatred? And in fact, you should respect them and pray for them like many of us are doing. What is Da'at Torah? What is Da'at Torah? Because the Mishnah in Masechet Avot says, Chachamim tizaru b'divrechem. The wise men, meaning the Torah scholars, must be careful with their words, because lest their words mislead their students and bring those students to Gehinnom. That's what the Mishnah in Masechet Avot says, meaning that even if this rabbi didn't mean for it to come out that way, certainly it came out that way, and he should have been careful. Now some are saying, no, the clip of him talking was really cut and manipulated, which again, it's very, very possible. I know that people do that with my clips at times, and certainly try to make the Jewish people look bad. But the reality is that even when someone says something, they have to be able to stand by it. And when your only defense is that the clip was not exactly what I said, at the very least we would expect an explanation for what you said, which we didn't receive. And quite frankly, the Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan says that if somebody gets something happening to them, let's say for example, people call him a thief or a liar or some type of derogatory name, and even if he is innocent overall, there is certainly some type of guilt within him, thereby being the reason of why Hashem is bringing it to his attention. That even if he's not a liar, even if he's not a thief, certainly there was something that he did that made Hashem decide to turn the world around and make this embarrassment actually happen with his name on it, with his signature on it. So, of course, there is no better place in the world to go in the beginning of each one of our shurim and throughout the shurim than our weekly parasha. Regardless of what weekly parasha we are in, it always deals with the issues at hand that are happening around the world if one would simply just study the Torah. Now, in this week's parasha, Parashat Vayeitzei, we see that Yaakov Avinu, after leaving his parents' home, he is now gone to the house of Lavan, and here he is in for a mission of his life, which is to deal with this conniving liar called Lavan. And Lavan cheats him already right off the bat with the proposal that Yaakov gives him, saying that I'm willing to work for you for 7 years if you simply give me your younger daughter. Of course, everyone understood this meant Rachel. And after working for 7 years, Lavan manipulated things in such a way where he gave Leah to Yaakov and forced Yaakov into a position of working for him another 7 years in order to marry Rachel, the one that he was interested in from the beginning. And after working for him another 7 years and marrying Leah, Yaakov wants to leave, but Lavan comes up with another arrangement, saying, work for me for another 7 years. Work for me for more time. He doesn't even specify 7 years. It ends up being another 7 years. Work for me for more time, and I'll give you a deal that you make the terms for. And Yaakov, of course, makes the deal. And he tells him, listen, I'll make it a favorable deal for you. I'm only going to get the whatever sheep you give me. I'm going to continue being the shepherd, breeding them, doing whatever is necessary to make sure that they're taken care of. And whatever payment you want to pay me, you don't have to worry about that payment. Just the only payment I want is that any sheep that comes out that has spots on it, that's going to be my sheep. So of course, Lavan, in order to steer the agreement in his favor, he takes away all of the spotted sheep in order to make everyone as unlikely as possible to breed and produce spotted sheep. And regardless of his efforts, Hashem still blessed Yaakov, and Yaakov became very successful. After Yaakov became very successful, and he tells his wives that he heard the conversation of Lavan's sons, of how the talk around the family, the talking around the family is that really Yaakov stole from Lavan, and it's impossible of how he has so much and how he benefited so much from this partnership, forgetting about the fact that if he became a millionaire, they became billionaires. Still, this is unfortunately the nature of stingy and unethical people, that instead of counting their profits, they're counting the little payment that the small employee made. And he hears that this is not the type of talk that he heard in the past 20 years, and he decides that it's time to leave before things get really ugly. And at this time, Yaakov Avinu says something to his wives, who are now the mothers of his children, and he says to them in chapter 31, verse number 5, I see the expression of your father's face, that it's not towards me like yesterday and before that, but the word of the God of my father has been in my aid. And furthermore, you have known that with all my strength I worked for your father. Yet your father deceived me and changed my wage 10 times. But Hashem did not allow him to harm me. If he would say thus, spotted ones shall be your wage, then the entire flock would bear spotted ones. And if he would say thus, white-ankled ones shall be your wage, then the entire flock would bear white-ankled ones. Thus Hashem separated your father's livestock from him and gave it to me. Now, Yaakov Avinu is disclosing something that, for all intents and purposes, we would think is common knowledge among the family of Yaakov and his wives. Everyone knew, even before Yaakov married Rachel and Leah, that Lavan was a thief. In fact, when Yaakov arrived at the well, before he saw Rachel for the first time, he asked the people if they knew Lavan. And where we see there that the response that the people had was not really a very open or nice response. Like, yeah, we know. Very short response. And it says, is everything well with him? And they said, yeah, everything is well with him. And Chazal said, because everybody was scared of Lavan, everybody hated Lavan, everyone knew Lavan was a thief. Even when Rachel met Yaakov, she wasn't hesitant to tell him that her father was a thief, her father was a criminal, her father was somebody that you shouldn't mess with. And Yaakov had the confidence that he is going to be able to deal with Lavan and not be cheated by him. But still here we see that 20 years later, Yaakov tells his wives, your father did end up cheating me. And not just once, not just twice, 10 times. Reality, Chazal says that it wasn't really 10 times, but rather 100 times. 10 times is just an expression. That he changed the arrangement between them 100 times. Now, the question we have, and we've asked in the past, if somebody works for somebody, let's say you work for somebody, and your salary day comes, and you like this company, you're doing good for this company, you're working hard for this company, you're waking up early in the morning for this company, you're doing whatever you need to do. Payday comes, and instead of getting your wage that you agreed on, you get less. Now, of course, you're going to tell the boss, hey, listen, they shortchanged me, they did this, they did that, fine. Now, when you go home that day, are you going to tell your wife? Obviously, you will. In fact, you're probably going to tell not just your wife, you're going to tell your friends, you're going to tell your family, you're going to tell people. Now, if, let's say, you're a really righteous person, you're a decent person, and you figure it's just a, innocent mistake, and you keep it to yourself because you don't want to really start off on a bad foot, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to tell anybody, I'll just let the boss fix it, and everything's going to be fine. And let's say everything ends up being fine, and then a week later, or 2 weeks later, you get your check again, and again you're shortchanged. Now this time it's already second mistake. Certainly you're going to go to the boss, you're going to complain to the boss, you're going to tell him, listen, they shortchanged me, and he's going to tell you whatever he's going to tell you. And let's say he tells you, no, I didn't really mean to pay you 1,000, I actually meant 800, you just misunderstood me, I told you that if you do this, this, and this, and you fly in the air, and you jump through hoops, and you show up at least a half hour early every day, then I'll pay you 1,000, but you didn't do that because I really didn't tell you, and so on and so forth. Let's say, whatever, you finish that day, you come home, your wife sees that your check is 20, 30, 40% less than what she thought you were going to get, are you going to tell her that you made a mistake? Or are you going to tell her what the boss did? Or are you going to keep it to yourself? Now let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you kept it to yourself. You say, no, it was just a misunderstanding. I misunderstood. He really said 800 and I understood 1,000. So it's not really his mistake. I made the mistake. And lo and behold, a couple of more weeks pass. And you get your salary. And all of a sudden you see that your salary now is 500. Now, of course, you can go and complain to the boss, and you can tell him, no, but you said 800, and really you said 1,000, and blah, blah, blah. And you can do whatever it is that you want, and you figure out how to come up with this deal ahead. But then when you come home, are you going to tell your wife when she sees the check? Or you're too embarrassed to show the check, you just deposit it before she sees it. And then when she sees that only 500 came in, and she says to you, honey, where's the money? I haven't seen you all day, I haven't seen you all week, I haven't seen you for 2 weeks, and at the very least I was hoping that we're going to have enough money to pay the rent, but here we have only 500, we're missing 300, where's the money? Are you then going to tell her, honey, you know what, this boss, he keeps cheating me? Now I would assume, safely, that most people would have already told their wives after the first time, and if they were strong, they held off and they said it, not the first time, but the second time. But certainly, everyone, unless they're complete tzaddikim, are going to say something by the third one. And even if they are complete tzaddikim, how are you going to answer your wife that you're missing for half the salary that you originally thought you're going to get? Here we see Yaakov Avinu do exactly that. 20 years he's working, and all of a sudden he remembers to tell his wives that, by the way, you know your father, you're the same father that you told me 20 years ago is a liar, is a thief, is a mobster, has conned everybody he has come across. You know that father that's a thief, that's a liar? Well, you know what? He did cheat me. And he's been cheating me. Not once, not twice, not 10 times, but 100 times. Now obviously if they know, and he's told them like most normal people would, what's the point of telling them now? This serves no value. They already know. Especially after 20 years. We're talking about everyone would tell their wives after the first, second, or third check. We're talking about here 20 years worth of checks that are constantly missing a piece of what was agreed upon. 100 times. I mean, you're talking about here an average of 6 missing checks per year. Half the checks of the year are missing. Where's the money, Yaakov? Now you remember to tell us that he cheated you? Yes. Why? Because now Yaakov Avinu sees that this information of me being cheated, although it was true, although he could even have permission to say it, he didn't say it to his wife. Why? It would serve no value to them. If their father cheated him or didn't cheat him, what could they do about it? He still wanted to marry, he still wanted to make a living, he still was in a situation, so he decided to simply keep it a secret for 20 years. Yaakov Avinu did not say a single word of complaint after being cheated after 100 years, and then people wonder why we call him our forefather. That alone is a test of all tests. People complain all the time about how people owe the money, or people promise them they'll do this and they end up doing that, and all types of things. Literally, there's some people out there that they're like magnets to lawsuits, magnets to disagreements. Everyone they meet with, everyone they do business with, everyone that they connect to somehow or another, it leads to some type of turmoil. That's part of their test. Some people, literally, every other day there's some type of lawsuit, some misunderstanding. And after a while you ask yourself, listen, what, is it possible that everyone wants to cheat you, or is there something wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. Here we know there's nothing wrong with Yaakov. Yaakov is a tzaddik. Yaakov is a kadosh. Yaakov protected his mouth, and he did not want to say a single word that would not produce value, necessary value. So if you're not going to say it for 20 years, why say it now? If you're going to complain while you're there. Maybe one of the daughters can talk to the father, do something about it. No. Yaakov said, even if I would have told them, there's nothing they could do about it. Their father's a cheater. They knew about it. They knew that he's a cheater. They didn't know he's cheating me and how much he's cheating me. But now I'm going to tell him. Why I'm going to tell him? Because now it is relevant. Because it affects them. Because now, for the first time ever, I'm telling them, it's time to leave your father's home. It's time to leave your father's home. And in case you thought that we have it good here because God allowed us to have parnasah here, don't think it's because of your father's good heart, but rather because of the mercy of Hashem. Your father, on the other hand, he wanted to destroy us. He cheated us 100 times. He tried to destroy us altogether. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu teaches us one of the most extraordinary and valuable lessons that a person must learn, needless to say a Jew must learn, which is to protect their speech. As I've said a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, there are certain people that like to go to get-togethers in Gehinnom. What's a get-together in the Gehinnom? To explain to those that either haven't heard or need to hear again. Get-together in Gehinnom is when you have a get-together among your girlfriends, get-together among your boys, and you decide that you're going to get together, perhaps have some coffee together, tea, a beer, whatever it is that people drink. Have lunch together, have dinner together, Shabbos. And instead of talking about things that are relevant to being productive in this world, instead of talking about the word of Hashem, instead of talking about things that are permissible, what do they talk about? They talk about the things that will bring you to Gehinnom, and in some cases will never let you out. Why? They like to talk about people. Hi, did you hear about her? Yeah, you saw what happened with her and her husband outside the synagogue? Yeah, I know the story behind it. Let me tell you the story. It's really juicy, and I couldn't wait to see you. I wanted to tell you. I want to tell you so bad. It's such a juicy story. I highly recommend you don't drink that coffee. Why? Because if you drink that coffee while you hear the story, the coffee will come out of your nose once you hear the details. And she's looking forward to sharing somebody else's private information that was somehow made public. And she doesn't realize that she's bringing upon herself curse upon curse from all of the righteous people that ever lived. Why? Arur makeh baseter, v'kol ha'am omer amen. The Holy Torah tells us, cursed is the person that hurts another in hiding, behind the scenes, without them seeing. And all of Am Yisrael say amen. And the Gemara says, although the punishments of the Bet Din of the Sanhedrin are no longer able to be punished today, whether it's the skila, the stoning, or the fire, or the sword, or the hanging, HaKadosh Baruch Hu still brings punishment to the world himself. Needless to say, the verses in the Torah where a wicked person gets cursed by Am Yisrael still happens. It's just that it's Am Yisrael that's watching, all the righteous people that are watching, and not necessarily the people that you see drinking coffee with you. In fact, Rabotai Karim, these parties in Gehinnom, these get-togethers in Gehinnom, have everything to do with what people like to do. They like to get together. They like to talk about people. And they don't just like to talk about them, they like to rip their lives apart. Who got divorced? Who's getting married? Who is fat? Who used to be skinny? Whose dress is not modest? Whose dress is too ugly? Whose husband is cheating? Whose kids are degenerates? Who is this? Who is that? That's a party in Gehinnom. That's a coffee in Gehinnom. Why? none of that is that is allowed. All of that is forbidden speech. Speaking about people is a very, very dangerous thing unless you know all of the halachot of lashon hara, of rechilut, of being careful with your speech. Needless to say, being careful with speaking about Jews. And generally speaking, the only time you should feel comfortable speaking about another Jew is if it's for the sake of either helping him or protecting others. And don't start rationalizing, no, I'm protecting her from being friends with her because she's a really mean person. She's a mean person to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're protecting somebody else. And these get-togethers, instead of being a nice get-together, spend some time together, do something useful together, they end up being get-together in Gehinnom. Because all of those girlfriends are going to go to Gehinnom together. And all of them are going to be hung by their tongues for their forbidden speech. One of the worst things that a woman can possibly get herself is a telephone and give everybody that phone number. Why? Because simply put, if you're going to talk on the telephone for long hours, for sure you're going to say things that are forbidden. If you're going to have constant get-togethers with your friends, for sure you're going to say things that are forbidden. Tzadikot do not talk much. Why? Because to talk requires a lot of thought, a lot of care, a lot of concern. And not everyone would agree with you that your care, concern, and thought are what they want to talk about. So even if you're a tzadikah, your girlfriends may not be. Your neighbor may not be. Your sister may not be. They want to talk about people. And now you have a problem. This is why when you see or read the bios of the tzadikot, whether it's the Rav Kanievsky's wife, Alea Shalom, Batsheva Kanievsky, Alea Shalom, or any of the other tzadikot, you're not going to hear any of these lashon hara stories. You're going to hear stories of extraordinary things that these wonderful women did and how careful they were when it comes to sinning. Now, here we see Yaakov Avinu teaching us a very, very valuable lesson of once you know that a certain speech is not going to help somebody and in fact could hurt someone, you have to calculate whether you're even allowed to say it. Secondly, even if that person caused you a damage, let's say for example somebody owns a restaurant and you went to the restaurant and you and your wife, fancy restaurant, kosher, $150 each. You had even a couple of friends with you. You paid for everybody, very generous, $600 for dinner. And you got it like that. Problem is that when the dessert came, you found some bug in the dessert. When the dessert came, you found that it was rotten. When the steak came, you found that was raw, and you don't like it raw. When the order came, it was missing some of the things that you ordered, or you were delayed. And in so many words, you were very, very unhappy about the way that you were served in this restaurant and how far your $600 went, and you started complaining, and you started yelling, not caring about the fact that most likely they didn't do it on purpose. And in fact, even if they did it on purpose, who gave you the right to publicly embarrass them? But if that wasn't enough, you decided that, you know what? These people are so bad, I'm going to tell people how terrible they are. And you go out there and you go on the little war machine called the computer, called the phone, called social media, and you tick, 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 restaurant ABC, they call it kosher, but only if you're blind, it's kosher. Because they have roaches in their cakes. They have steaks that are raw. They have this, they have that. You publicize this. And just like today, this rabbi was publicized saying something awful. And it reaches 500,000 people in a matter of hours. Your little tweet reaches countless people in the community. And guess what? Nobody wants to go to that restaurant that cost them $1 million, $2 million, $3 million to build, within 3 months is shut down because of that little tweak you made. You, my dear friend, are in very serious trouble. Because in heaven, you now have acquired yourself a lawsuit. A lawsuit you cannot win. A lawsuit that will cost you much, much more suffering than you can possibly fathom. If you want an inkling of an imagination, just watch my lecture about Chibut HaKevel and Gehinnom. That's just a small tidbit of it, of what's going to happen. Why? You got damaged. Let's say you're right. Your damage was $600. But your revenge that you permitted yourself just cost the owners $3 million. How are you going to pay them back? No, they have a bad business. Bad or no bad? Who gave you the right to say something? Who gave you the right to publicize it? Even if you're right about the 600, that's your case, 600. You can't just cause people damage just because they cause you damage and multiply the effect by 5,000-fold. And that's what people don't understand. They write little reviews on the internet. They write little reviews. They write little comments. Each one of those letters is a new chamber in Gehinnom. Each one of those sentences is another sentence in Gehinnom. Why? Because you're causing people damage. That's much more than what you got. And in many cases, you didn't even get a damage. In many cases, people just like to damage people for no reason whatsoever. Just because they're bad people. Reshaim. Now, Rabotai Karim, when we compare ourselves to our forefathers, we're supposed to say, when are my actions going to be like my forefathers? So now you hear that Yaakov Avinu has been cheated, has been lied, has been stolen from for 20 years. Never said a word. Never said a single word. Can you honestly say, when are my actions going to be like my forefather, or when am I going to start getting my act together, more like it? When am I going to get my act together and shut my mouth and not talk bad about people more time than others that didn't even do anything bad to me? Just because she didn't call me back. Just because she answered me with a cap letters and I thought she was yelling at me. This language of the internet, like somehow there's some type of language in the internet that somehow was invented that if you write in caps, it's considered like you're yelling. And if you send the wrong emoji, they get offended. If you don't respond right away like you are the FBI, then apparently you don't care anymore. And all types of stupid things that people invent in their minds and lead them to cause damage to other people. Chachamim tizaru bedivrechem, Chachamim tizaru bedivrechem. Oh, yeah. Wise people have to be careful with what they say. And if you're not careful with what you say, then clearly you have no wisdom. Clearly you have no wisdom. Hence the reason why I always tell people, listen, if you hear me see something about another rabbi or another person, you don't necessarily need to repeat what I said to everybody, but you can be sure that I've gotten permission for what I said. And I double-checked it 50 million times with people that are much greater than I can ever be in order to get permission to say what I say. I'm not a cowboy. I'm not putting my olam haba on the line just for a shootout. But one of the things that people don't understand is that evil speech causes many, many problems. Now this rabbi said that soldiers in the IDF could be respected like garbage men. On one end, it sounds awful. It sounds terrible. If you listen to him and you think that he is representing Judaism, you will certainly arrive at a horrible opinion about Judaism altogether, the Torah. But the good news is that he is not the representative of Judaism. He did not quote a source, nor does such a source exist to justify his statement. In fact, it's quite the contrary. If you look at Gdolei Ador, you look at the Chachamei Ador, you look at the greatest people in the generation, they have the exact opposite opinion. Rav Amar Shichyeh, who was the Rishon LeZion, he was also the chief rabbi of Israel, one of Gdolei Yisrael, has written and has spoken extensively at how much we owe gratitude to these young soldiers that are sacrificing their life for the safety of their brothers and sisters in Israel. How these young men are going and leaving their wife and kids, and many times saying goodbye without actually knowing if there's ever going to be a hello. How they're leaving their wives, going to a place full of terrorists, full of monsters, people that are so vile, no description suffices. These soldiers are going to war. Some of them are not coming back. Some of them are coming back with missing limbs. Some of them are coming back with trauma that will not leave them throughout their entire lives. Why are they going? Are they going because they're bored? Are they going because they get paid a lot of money? Neither. Many of them have decent lives. Many of them have wives and kids. Many of them have no real interest in putting their lives in danger. Quite the opposite. They want to live, but they're sacrificing their life and going to war because they know that their nation needs it. Whether it's their nation that lives in Israel or the Jewish people around the world. And if we don't defend ourselves here, we're doomed worldwide. This is why the chief rabbi of Satmar, the Rebbe of Satmar, spoke out against these monsters called Neturei Karta, Shem Reshaim Yerkav, that go and joined forces with Iran, the terrorist nation, joined forces with Hamas, joined forces with the enemies of Am Yisrael, cheering for the murder of Jewish people living in Israel because of their hatred of the Zionists. But in reality, it's their hatred of God, it's their hatred of Jews, it's their hatred of everyone except money. So the Rebbe Misatmer spoke out against them, wrote against them. This was publicized recently. It was also spoken about many years ago by Rabbi Yoel of Satmar, who threw out the Neturei Karta out of Satmar in 1967, according to the Gregorian calendar. These rebels have gotten worse and worse throughout the generations. You don't have to agree, and certainly you should disagree, with the political situation in Israel. But to go and cheer for the murder of Jewish people, to go and befriend the enemies of Israel, that's not taking it too far. That's joining the enemy. That's becoming the enemy. And anyone out there that says bad things about the soldiers that are now sacrificing their life has no concept of what Torah is, no concept of proper ashkafa, ideology, and is so enamored by their own hatred that they cannot see straight. Now, if you say that this statement of comparing the soldiers to garbage men, meaning that, according to what many people understood, the soldiers are worthless, is what this rabbi really meant, then certainly this is a forbidden statement. It has nothing to do with Torah. It has nothing to do with Judaism. It's certainly not the perspective of the Jewish people. It's just simply a perspective of one foolish man who should have kept his mouth shut. Because according to our sages, people that die for the sake of protecting their brothers and sisters, at the very least, are considered arugei malchut. People that die for the sake of the kinghood, which puts them in a very, very high level in Shamayim, after whatever bill they have for their sins is dealt with. Some would even say since they volunteer to go to war, rather than being forced to go to war, and therefore they don't die without wanting to be there, but actually putting themselves in a risky situation puts them even in a position of Kiddush Hashem. Needless to say, you're never going to find a posek in the history of Am Yisrael that says to disrespect and show lack of gratitude to soldiers that are sacrificing their life for the sake of your life. Some of the places that we see how important gratitude is. We see that Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to hit the river and turn it to blood. Why? Because when he was a baby and his mom put him in a little teva, a little basket, the river could have drowned him, but it didn't. Moshe wanted to show gratitude to the river, and certainly not show it lack of gratitude, ungratefulness, by turning it into blood. The same goes with the sand. The same goes with a lot of different things that crossed the path of Moshe Rabbeinu. And Chachamim say in the Midrash Rabbah, look at the gratitude that Moshe Rabbeinu had to what? To sand? To water? How much obligation is on us to show gratitude to people that show us good, that show us a kind eye, that give us a job, that give us protection, that even give us a ride. Somebody gave you a ride, somebody gave you a job, that means he gave you life. Years ago, in a series that we did for some time in Florida, called Amazing Questions About God, one of the lectures was about gratitude. I wish I could remember the name of this lecture, because I myself would listen to this lecture 1,000,000 times if I could. I remember it like it was yesterday. But since so many topics were discussed in that lecture, we named it all types of things. I don't remember what the name is. But this lecture showed us a little bit of an understanding according to our sages of what gratitude you should have for somebody that simply lends you a pen. Somebody lends you a pen so you can write down a chidush, so you can write down a phone number, so you can apply for a job, so you can call somebody that you need to talk to. A pen. How much gratitude you owe for a pen. Needless to say, somebody that gave you life, like your parents, somebody that gave you food to eat, like somebody that employs you. Needless to say, somebody that helped you do tshuva, and now you're out of Gehinnom and have a possibility of going to Gan Eden. If people understood how much they owe Akadosh Baruch Hu, they would literally cry themselves to death and realize how much debt they have. Forget the sins. Put the sins aside for a moment. How much debt we have to Ribono Shel Olam for what he gives us every single day for free. And there you go and you speak against his kids, saying that they're garbage men, implying that they're worthless. And that's the one side of the equation. But then you're going to say, yeah, but maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe he meant that just like you show respect to garbage men, you show respect to soldiers. It's kind of a strange comparison. But let's just say we're going to find him some kaf zchut. What kind of respect do you give to the garbage man? What kind of respect are you supposed to give to the garbage man? Rabotai Yekarim, if a person sees somebody taking their garbage out and does not show gratitude, they should know they have a stamp in Shamayim. They're ungrateful people. Why? You're saying, what? He's doing his job. The waiter is doing his job. The restaurant is doing his job. The postman is doing his job. The operator is doing his job. They get paid for it. Yes. But that does not mean that you should be ungrateful. Because think about it. What if this garbage man decided that he doesn't want to come to work today? And you, with all of the full diapers from your kids, had the garbage stay there for a little longer. And you, with all of the wonderful things that came out of your body, have to stay there for a little longer. And not just another day, and not just another week, but simply nobody decided to take out the garbage. What would happen to that nice home you have? No matter how big your home is, no matter how fancy it is, your home would turn into garbage. The stench around your house and in your house will get to such a point that you'd be willing to sell your home for $5 and even pay somebody to take it, just so you can move to a place that has a garbage man. When you see a garbage man, if you show them gratitude, that means you're normal. If you don't show them gratitude, that means you're a person that's ungrateful. Today, people are of the mindset that the world owes them something. And unfortunately, they think that they don't need to show anybody gratitude. This is a big reason of why divorce is constantly on the rise. Every year surpasses the prior year. This is why many kids disconnect from their parents as they get older, calling their parents by their first names, and many times not even calling them at all. What do they learn at home? Lack of gratitude. Their parents were not grateful to their parents. So why should their kids be grateful to them? And unfortunately, when people do not know how to show gratitude, they can wear a kippah, they can wear a shtreimel, they can wear kisui rosh, they can wear whatever they want to wear. They're still wicked in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because when you show lack of gratitude to your fellow man, it's only a matter of time before you become an apikolos against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's only a matter of time before you become a heretic against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what Chazal says. So whether this rabbi used his words inappropriately by, in so many words, misleading others to think that you should not show any gratitude towards the soldiers, which is the opposite of what the Torah says. Or he compared them to a profession that many people don't necessarily find as a very honorable profession, even though it's very profitable in many places, especially America, and is no less honorable than other professions. But the reality is, it was a bad comparison. So even if you want to find kaf zchut, you're still left with a question of why didn't he explain himself and justify his statement and say, no, chas v'shalom, I would never say something bad about the soldiers. We owe them much gratitude. They're protecting us. They're fighting, even though it's all in the hands of Hashem. Hashem is the one that decides whether we live or die. Still, these people are part of our ishtadlut. If the terrorists came to your neighborhood, you'd be very happy if you have a few soldiers next to you. You'd be very happy if a few Jewish soldiers are next to you if a terrorist came to your neighborhood. Just like, as soon as the garbage comes out of your house, you'd be very happy when the garbage man comes. Everyone knows that anytime there's weather problems or all types of issues and the garbage man does not come on time, you have to refigure out what to do. Your life has to be restructured. Why? Because what are you going to do with all this extra garbage? Changes things. This, Rabotai, is very critical for people to understand. But the other part is a person can say, fine, okay, I'll try to show more gratitude. How could I show gratitude? How could I show gratitude to the soldiers? How could I show gratitude to the people that are sacrificing their lives for me, their time, their resources, their everything for me to live? How? by not making the same mistake that this Jew made and speaking in a way that's inappropriate. As the Chazal say in multiple places about nivlut peh, obscene speech, and how much tzarot it brings. For example, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, page 33. The sages say, due to obscene speech, tzarot rabot v'gzerot kashot mitchadshot. Many troubles and evil decrees come to the world, and bachure sonei Yisrael metim, Jewish soldiers, die because of your obscene speech, because you decided to use obscene speech, the A word and the F word and this word and that word. You think it's funny? Because of you, a Jewish soldier may die. Yetomim ve'almanot tzoakim ve'enan ne'ananim. Orphans and widows cry out, but they're not answered. Why? Used obscene speech. Shenemar al ken al bachurav lo yismach Hashem ve'et yitomav ve'et almenotav lo yirachem ki chalu chanaf umira ve'kol peh duver nevela. The prophet says, therefore Hashem will unhappily punish their young men, and He will not pity even their orphans and widows, for they are all flatterers and wicked, and every mouth utters obscenities. Yet His anger has not subsided, and His hand is still outstretched. Shem Yirachem. You thought that your obscene speech is not a big deal? You're wrong. The Gemara in Yerushalmi, Masechet Trumot, in the first section, Halacha Dalet, and also in the first section, Halacha Vav, and also in the Yalkut Shimoni, Parashat Kedoshim, in Remez 603. Chazal brought us on the Pasuk in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 23, verse 15, V'lo yireh becha ervat davar v'shav ma'acherecha, that may Hashem not see a thing of nakedness among you and turn away from you. That this is referring to obscene speech, using curse words, swearing, derogatory, filthy language, lashon hara, gossip. All of these things make a Kadosh Baruch Hu run away from you. And therefore say Chazal, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that He is among you when you are holy, to save you, to protect you. And therefore when you are unholy, by using obscene speech, the Shekhinah mistaleket. V'yesh efsed b'milchama. Chas v'shalom. The Shekhinah leaves and you lose the war. What war? The war we're in right now, chas v'shalom. Why? You decided to use obscene language. Furthermore, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Rav Ganzvit, alav v'shalom, wrote about in Seif Vav, in Siman 151, in regards to wasting seed being a sin. He said one of the things that causes wasting seed, nivul peh, obscene speech. When you have obscene mouth, it causes your brit to become obscene as well. Where the Sefer Yetzirah says that whoever has a foul mouth will ultimately waste seed. In a sefer called Tochachat Chaim, Parashat Bereshit, page 51, בעוון נבלות פה צרות רבות וגזרות קשות מתחדשות ובחורי שונאי ישראל מתים. Rabbi, it's the same thing that the Gemara says, that many evil decrees come to Am Yisrael. Young men die. And he says, ולא המנבל פיו בלבד אמרו, שראוי לעונש גדול כזה, כי גם השומע ניבול פה ושותק נענש. So you know that not only the one that has obscene speech is fitted to get a big punishment for it, but also the one that hears obscene speech and doesn't say anything or to stop it, he also gets punished. All of you guys and girls that listen to rap music and all types of music that has filthy speech, know that you have Jewish blood on your hands. You have Jewish soldier blood on your hands right now because you decide to listen to one of these gangster rappers. Your gangster rapping leads to death of Jewish soldiers. Said you want to show gratitude. Shut down that disgusting music, disgusting movies, shows, and any type of obscene speech. Rabbeinu Yonah, 750 years ago, Sha'arei Tshuva, in the third gate, section 229 says, the reason why one who speaks obscenities is heavy with sin, and loathsome and detested by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is because he has forsaken and deserted the qualities of shame and modesty, which are the recognized features of the holy seed of Yisrael, and instead has gone along the pathway of insolence, which is the characteristic found in evil speakers of obscenity. The second reason that he's hated and detested and loathsome by heaven is because he has desecrated the holiness of Am Yisrael. This is stated in the Pasuk in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 6, where it says, they will say, this great nation is purely a wise and intelligent people, yet he has conducted himself in a manner of detestable fools, removed from the path of intelligence, which is all beauty and pleasantness. Their foulness rises and their stench ascends, and every wise, intelligent person will absolutely loathe them and utterly abhor them. He has desecrated the vessel of intelligence, which is more precious than all other desirable vessels. As Shlomo HaMelech says in chapter 20, verse 15 of Proverbs, but the lips of knowledge are a precious vessel. One who listens to obscene speech is also very severely punished, for he has not sealed his ear or disassociated himself from those who speak obscenities. Regarding such a person, Shlomo HaMelech says in chapter 22, verse 14 of Proverbs, the estranged mouth is a deep pit. Those despised by Hashem will fall there. Here we see Chazal bring us source after source of how detestable evil speech is. And all different types of evil speech. All types of evil speech. Maran Achida, in a sefer called Tziporin Shamir, in Siman Yud Aleph Ot Kuf Ein Chet 178, says, "Apogem piv bedvar nevela pogem benafsho." Someone who violates his mouth in a despicable way, damages his soul. And therefore the punishment from heaven is that they impurify him by causing him to waste seed while he's sleeping. Venidon b'mita olamit, and his judgment is eternal death. Shem Yishmo v'yatzid. This is the Chida. This is not Joe Shmo. This is the Chida. Why? Because you use disgusting speech. Ve'en tfilato nishmat 40 yom. And his prayer is not heard in heaven for 40 days. Why? You used one single cursed word. Ube'echal noga shisha malachim im 245 kitot menadin oto lemotzi levatala. And he put in a special place in Gehinnom where 6 angels with 245 classes of them, beat him and judge him for what? For the wasting seed that came from that curse word. Shem Yishmor V'Yatzil. The Ramchal, Mesilat Yesharim, chapter 11, talks about Nivul Peh. He says, Gam b'mi shemedaber nivlut peh derech schok be'alma davar asur. That you should know, of course, it's forbidden for you to say obscenities when you're angry. But he says, no, that's not the only thing. Even if you say just kidding, just joking around with your friends, just kidding. Oh, you see that? That's obscenities. That's violating your mouth. He says that's also forbidden. And it brings, says the Mesilat Yesharim, mevi le'isurim acharim. He ends up getting much suffering because of this speech. Rabbeinu the Pele Yoetz, in his sefer called Ya'alzu Chasidim, in page 110, he writes exactly as I say. Otam anashim medabrim nivul peh, o lashon hara, o chosdim, b'ksherim, b'kavana. Those people that have obscene speech, or they say lashon hara, or they suspect kosher people intentionally, and say, amakom yimchali, that the Hashem will forgive me. Lo yachshav li avon. This is not really a sin. Enam mevinim ki lo yoveh Hashem sheloach lahem. They have no understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not forgive them. Ela adraba, the opposite, contrary. Yichbad ansham ki em yud'im rebonam umechavnim limrod. Rather the opposite. Their punishment will be worse because they know that their Creator exists and they simply intend to go against Him. For what? For that party of Gehinnom with some coffee and lashon hara that you had in your house. For that conversation outside of work where you were smoking a few cigarettes and talking about other people's money and other people's personal lives. For that, there's a special place of punishment for such people. Rabotai Yekarim, my goal today is to explain to you and to encourage you to protect your speech. Whatever comes into your mouth is no big deal according to some people, but according to the Torah, what comes into your mouth is a very big deal. It has to be kosher. Even more so, times a million, what comes out of your mouth has to be kosher. Not just your food has to be kosher, but also your speech. If you don't have something that is permissible according to the Torah to say, simply don't say. Don't say anything. Be quiet. Quiet is also a sign of wisdom. Or at the very least, they won't know how foolish some people are. The same thing goes with typing on the internet, and all these message boards. If you don't have something that you know for sure is permissible, and even a mitzvah to do, don't say it. Don't write it. Why? The risk is too great, and the damage is too dear. Don't play with your soul like that. BeEzrat HaShem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will lighten our eyes to see the truth, will soften our hearts to accept it, will allow each and every single one of us, including the ones of us that have made many mistakes, whether today or yesterday or any other time in the past. Allow us to do tshuva. Give us the courage and the ability and the know-how to do tshuva, and BeEzrat HaShem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have mercy on us, that once we do tshuva, He accepts it completely. Thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you to really do tshuva as we are trying to do it today. Kol tu b'cha b'atzlacha.